Very welcome to Animana and Hecho por Nosotros. Today we are at the Youth Forum 2022. It's a great opportunity to join voices with youth around the world in order to go together to give action to the Sustainable Development Agenda 2030. Youth, you are the present, you are the future. You have a huge opportunity to be the change makers that our society deserves. I would like today to share my own experience on how we create this journey around sustainability, regenerative models, and this open platform that you are all invited to be part, to be the main actors. I was born in Patagonia, surrounded by that beautiful place and nature and biodiversity ecosystem, communities, artisans, and beautiful people. It's from there that I connect with nature and its laws, and also around collaboration. Maybe in Patagonia we are few, so we really need to collaborate. I could see the huge work that implies to create, to offer a good quality natural fiber as can be the merino wool from Patagonia. And at the same time, the difficulties locally in order to create value added. It's for that I created the brand Animana, a brand that gathers producers, artisans from Patagonia and all across the Andes, the camelids, the different indigenous people with their textile richness and cultural assets that are so important for our whole society. From there is that we learn the problems that the value chains they have and they face in order to create value added and to be integrated and be part of the international fashion industry. And hand by hand with Hecho por Nosotros is that all these years we co-create with economists, business, academics from different areas, designers, educators, international leaders of policy makers, and brands and experts in the fashion industry. We co-create this journey for a systemic change.
What I found is that a lot of them do not have very formal impact assessment, but what they did have in a very strong way is this deep stakeholder dialogue. They were constantly talking to their artisans, understanding what the real issues were on the ground. And the role of the producer was much more was deeply integrated structurally within the organization. For example, in a number of these cooperations, producers were actually part of the board. They were worker-owned cooperatives, and this was something that ensured that artisans actually cared about what direction the organization took and whether or not they were getting the types of value that they were expecting to get, given how much they gave to the organization. And these types of structures and governances created high impact interventions despite often not having the resource to do formal impact assessment the way that we think about it.
And how we connect to nature through our clothing. And I think these reflections only come as people have opportunity to live moments in nature where they start feeling nature and understanding nature, not from an intellectual perspective, but more from a heartfelt perspective, an emotional perspective. So my quick invitation or reflection would be that, the more tech, the more urban we become, the more nature we will need. And we need to bring nature into education and education into nature to balance out this context in terms of our capacity to sense and love nature.
That guidance and that line to become more than just students within a school or within a group, but actually be able to get onto those committees within their schools and having student representation in meetings regarding sustainability and where is school uniforms being sourced from. Conversations like these are something that most students may not even think is a conversation they have the access to have. And that's really the key thing for me, is I have a very strong belief that we need to increase that accessibility and make students very aware that there is the need to have their opinions on these kind of topics.
They're doing. And also, I think to make it more collaborative, I do think it's essential to be getting outside the classroom more and having more experience with organizations that are centered on sustainable systems and also SMEs. And then, so that's kind of when it comes to traditional educational systems. And then but the truth is that I think to really generate this conversation amongst everybody, we do need to create new systems that makes education more accessible. So to generate this type of conversation amongst our industry and to create genuine impact, we need to create new systems, one that makes this type of information, access, and knowledge more accessible to all. So meaning our fashion industries, not just where design houses are headquartered and where schools are physically based. Our industry is built on the backs of developing countries. So we need to create a system that makes the education and knowledge we're gaining in the global north more accessible to all layers and members of the fashion community, from farmers to artisans and manufacturers beyond.
Brings out sort of two most important things that I think are important as we try and transform education. One is sort of, bringing in more reflective education, and that we saw from the TYE team, looking back at, how we behave in the world, what is the context that we live in, and working from there and really reflecting on, what is our impact on the world. And then I also wanted to sort of commend Soma on her work, especially in sort of, bringing in sort of this critical sort of mindset and questioning the ways that we also assess impact, because I think we get so drawn into this idea of, impact assessment through tools and, technology and things like that, that you forget that at the core of it, it's through stakeholder dialogues and through sort of, really engaging with the people that you're working with, that change happens. I'd like to mention is that we are also trying to sort of move away from discipline. So next year, we are going to introduce a program that is based on learning outcomes that is drawn out of the Education for Sustainable Development competencies. So we are trying to also sort of see how we can sort of blur the boundaries between disciplines and try and approach, this from a more lived perspective of, how we reflect on the practices and the and learning in the world that we live in.